Good evening and welcome everyone participating in this web lecture centering plant physiology and systematics, reconciling Anthropocene and Earth, which has been organized by the Department of Botany of Dr. Bhupendra Nath, Dr. Smriti Mahavidyalaya in collaboration with the library. We have present among us, apart from many eminent scholars and our dear students, our head of the institution, Dr. Nirmala Raja, and our coordinator of IQAC, Dr. Shravani Bose. It gives me great pleasure to have you all join us virtually for this session. Without further ado, let me introduce our distinguished speakers and proceed with the lectures. Dr. Sudip Chatterjee is the head of the Department of Botany at Shyamsundor College, Burdwan, with an academic experience spanning more than 15 years and a research experience of more than 18 years. He has more than 30 national and international publications. His other achievements include being a reviewer of 2 international journals, as well as being a member of the editorial boards of reputed periodicals. He is also a coordinator and member of several administrative committees. He has moreover participated and contributed to more than 25 state-level, national and international conferences. If you would take it from here, Dr. Chatterjee, please.
Thank you, madam. Respected teacher in charge, Nirmala madam, IQAC coordinator, Shravani madam, I think I call her Shravani D, a member of the organizing committee of this seminar, Dr. Shubhra Banerjee, I call her Shubhra D, and I think another member is a joint coordinator, I think he is Krishnendu Pramani, and my students, I can see a few of my colleagues here, and my ex-student also here. So I welcome all, and thank you, Didi, for giving me a chance to say something in this seminar. If you allow, should I start the proceeding? I would like to say something before starting this topic or the deliberation for the day. As Didi proposed me about the theme, that theme will be centering plant physiology and plant systematics, reconciling the Anthropocene and the art. I was a bit confused what to say in this particular biggest platform of theme concerned. As the theme said, I must confess to my students also that I was wondering what the theme actually means and how I will be able to adjust my topic in this particular theme. Then I took actually, I think few of the members who are present here actually switching off the video and audio. It would be better if it is kept in muted form, and if some question arise, they can ask at the end of this lecture. Now coming to the topic, plant physiology is such a big and vast area of study. It is hardly impossible to actually accommodate the whole discussion in this short span of half an hour or 45 minutes or 1 hour. So I have decided not to bother the head of my students, particularly the colleagues and the co-speakers are they can tolerate, but those students who are participating must be wondering that what they are getting. So for the sake of the students particularly who are listening to this lecture, I have tried to actually split the topic in few parts. Slowly I will come to my topic, and I have prepared a presentation also which will be visible right now on the screen, and after that I will start my deliberation. Is the presentation is visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now I am actually coming to my topic, and today's topic, as it is already discussed, that today's topic is centering plant physiology and systematics. Systematics is omitted from this part, as it will be discussed by Dr. Ganguly in the latter part of the evening. And my concern will be the plant physiology, and I'm just concising the whole thing in few words. I will discuss the history of plant physiology from the beginning, that is from around the year 1600 and so, and try to bring what development this plant physiology as a subject it achieved till now, and how the mankind is getting the benefit of the development of plant physiology as a subject, as an emerging stream, and as a whole, art is getting benefited. Or if it is not benefited, then what are the implications? I will try to actually accommodate the whole thing into this discussion in a very short and concise manner. I was told that actually I have to complete my lecture within half an hour, but maybe I will be stretched a bit, so I'm apologizing at the beginning. And without wasting any more time, let me introduce the topic. Before introducing the topic, and to the students particularly, I will be very happy that if they are understanding what I am saying. And at the beginning also, I asked Smriti whether I should speak in Bengali or in English, as I found that many of my students from different colleges are participating in this talk, and I also, from the bottom of my heart, believe that understanding science in mother language is best. So, few of my talks will be in Bengali also. I think it will be helpful for the students, and it will be helpful for me also to communicate with you in proper way. Now to begin with, I don't want to introduce plants to you as a student and teacher and interested person of botany. You are well aware what plants are. Plants actually give us food, we all know, the source of biofuel. They also play a crucial role in maintaining human health and ecosystem. Thus, I don't find it that it will be difficult for you to understand that to understand plant, we have to understand the mechanism of plant growth and development properly. And we are very selfish group of say what organisms, and we always try to understand these things for our own sake. As we are talking about Anthropocene, that means in a geological time scale where human being stayed or the human being actually presented. And from the beginning, when human beings started to say on a particular geological scale, they started exploiting the resources of art for their own sake. So we started to understand or tried to understand about plant growth and development, so that we can use those particular organisms, those organisms which are static in nature, for the sake of our own development and all. Plant physiology as a subject, as a stream, or as a science is considered as a experimental stream or an experimental group of study, where plant is being understood through certain experiments, certain hypotheses, and certain theoretical aspects. Now, our aim of studying plant physiology, I told at the beginning, if I'm not wrong, that we started developing this stream for our own benefit. So, everything, if the discussion proceeds further, you will understand that whatever I'm talking, we have tried to use this subject or to understand or to develop this subject for our own survival. And this is, I think, the greatest success of plant physiology, where the survival of the mankind is actually dependent on a subject. We'll see that. Plants, actually, they are static in nature. We all know they cannot move from one part to another. And they have occupied every corners of the earth, and they have withstood every adverse growth conditions by certain adaptations. We know that. So, when we try to actually understand what this particular subject is or what the particular plant physiology is, we have to understand what type of adaptations and what type of adaptive features those plants acquire to accommodate themselves in the particular atmosphere and make it friendly for other organisms to survive. This is the premise. Few of the adaptations, as you all know, much also knows that compartmentalization of the biochemical pathways, few separate compartments were developed like peroxisomes, chlorophyll, and all these things, and expression of membrane-associated transporter protein plays a very good role in adapting plants in different adverse conditions. We all know these, so I'm not going into details. Secondary metabolites, I will come to details of this in later part, so I'm not going in details right now. And other thing which is very interesting to me and other people who are interested in plant physiology are the photoreceptor based biochemical reactions. This is very interesting, and actually I think this is the core area where plant actually got the particular aid to survive in a particular environment. I was talking from the beginning that to accommodate my topic, plant physiology, in this particular theme of this bigger theme of Anthropocene and art, I have tried to first discuss the development of plant physiology as a separate branch of science. The story was not that very easy. First of all, today we know that plant absorb water by root. It get transported from the xylem to the leaves and fruits and other parts of the plant, and after preparing food, how it is transported back to other parts, sourcing theory, we all know this. But from the scratch, if we start, experiment by Francis Bacon was very simple experiment which was noted in a book written by him, Silva Silverum, which was published in 1627. He experimented with plant in a very simple manner. He actually put a plant, and not a tree, it will be a herbaceous plant, in liquid or say water, instead of putting the plant in soil. He found that the plant is still growing, surviving and thriving for a longer period without the help of soil. From this particular experiment, he concluded that soil is only necessary for the support of the plant to grow, not as a food source or any other source. Think what is happening in 1627. Now it may sound very silly, but this particular experiment actually opened a window to the scientist to think in a different manner. Previously, it was thought that soil was absolutely necessary, but nowadays, after the experiment of this particular scientist, Francis Bacon, soil was, according to him, was only necessary to support the plant for its growth and a separate avenue opened. Scientists started, or philosophers rather, started thinking or experimenting with the plant in a different manner. Then came John Baptist von Helmont. In the year 1648, he was the person who first performed the first quantitative experiment of plant physiology. It may sound very silly that first quantitative experiment means what? He actually took a willow plant, put the plant in a large pot containing 200 pounds of soil, but for the first time he used the soil which was totally dried by oven, by heating in oven. So what we can understand from that, the soil was totally dry, it didn't contain any moisture. Then he kept the willow plant there and started watering the plant from outside. After 5 years, he found that the soil present in that particular pot lost its weight only by 2 ounces. That means only a very little amount of soil was used for the growth of the plant. Rather, the water he was pouring from outside was necessary for the growth of the plant. Now, this was the first quantitative experiment of plant physiology. And you think today it sounds very silly that what is this? We all know all these things. No. In the year, it is 1648. Now in the 1627, the scientist said that water was required. Then he said water was required and soil, as the weight loss of the soil is very little, soil is not used. So they, till then, after 20 years, 21 years of experiment, the scientists could understand that plants actually using the soil present in water rather than the soil as a whole. This is the beginning of plant physiology. Now, another thing happened.
Sorry, sir. I'm
Yes,
just
yes.
interrupting because someone has captured the screen. So please, you start presenting. Resume your presentation. Okay. I can please. Once again, sir.
Is it okay now?
Yes, it is coming, sir.
Now, coming back to my discussion, that now I will talk something on the experiment which was done by John Woodward. The experiment is very simple. We also do this. He took a mint plant. We know mint plant as a pudina pata, and pudina pata gach amra jake boli. He took a mint plant and kept the plant in different kind of water. What is that? Distilled water, plain water, we say mineral water, and then the kind of water where soil was dissolved. He found that the mint plant was best growing in that particular solution or that in particular water where soil was dissolved. Now, think what is contradictory to the previous experiments. Previous experiments were proved that water was only necessary. Now, with this experiment, he proved that water is necessary, certainly, but the dissolved soil is also playing some role in the development of the plant. From this, we can now, from our present knowledge, we can now infer or we can now understand that the dissolved minerals which is present in the soil, actually dissolved in the solution, they also played some role in the development of the plant. Now, starting from 1627, we have reached 1697, 99 rather. That means almost 72 years of experiment regarding plant physiology proved that for the growth of the plant, not only water but dissolved minerals are also required. You just think the pace of understanding and the pace of science. Now, you must be as a student, if I was sitting there as a student, I was wondering what these particular people were trying to do with the 72 years of experiment just to understand the mechanism, what is necessary for the growth of the plant. এটা জেনে আমাদের কি হবে, আমি যেটা ক্লাসেও বারবার বলি, if now we think from economical point of view, actually we are utilizing this thing nowadays in the form of a very modern technique we know, a very modern technique we call in different nurseries, in different beds, in different farms. This is known as hydroponics. Think what is happening. Hydroponics, we all know, growing of plant in liquid without using soil. And this present development is very much economically beneficial to us. At the beginning, I started my discussion with a particular word that we as a particular organism, very selfish organism, particular group of animal, this human being, we always think how we ourselves can be benefited from one experiment or from one observation. This is the thing. Now, as we can understand that this thing is happening for the, this thing is required for the growth of a particular plant. Now we can use this. Now we can use for our cultivation purpose. And later came our experiment, which is actually known as the ascent of sap. It is in the syllabus, so particularly 5th semester students, they are well aware, teachers are also aware, but these experiments were performed in 1727. That means after 30-40 years of that particular research, where we can understand that root absorb not only water but also minerals. Now the question is that after absorbing water, what happens? Now Stephen Hales performed few experiments on his own, and first theory of ascent of sap was invented or tabulated by him in his particular book, which is very famous, Vegetable Statics, in 1727. It was published in 1727. And for the information of my students that can be asked in Viva, he is also called father of plant physiology. And this particular man, as you can see on the screen, he was not a scientist, but he was an English priest, Chatterjee Purohit. And this particular man was very interesting. He not only confined his research on plant, but also developed a technique of measuring blood pressure. And nowadays, he was considered as an inventor of ventilator, and you all know the significance and use of ventilator nowadays. So you can understand that these streams of plant physiology, medical biology, these are not interdependent. They are actually dependent. They are not independent, they are interdependent. Till now, that is up to 1727, these research were scattered. But this particular fellow, Julius von Sachs, who was a German fellow, He actually took all the bits, all the pieces, and developed plant physiology, now known as plant physiology. You have book of plant physiology, but he actually developed this stream, plant physiology, as a separate discipline of study or a separate discipline of science, and he tabulated all his works, that is the collection of all his works, in Livre de Botany. It is a very famous book. It was published in 1868, and you can see that in that time, that particular book was known as the Bible of plant physiology. And for your information, this is the beginning of plant physiology as a discipline. So now I think up to this discussion, it is clear that how plant physiology emerged as a science by different scientists, with the help of different scientists, for the sake of human being, and helped survival in a better way for the human being in this Anthropocene and for the betterment of the earth. Without further delay, I am proceeding. I must say that up till this, the experiments of plant physiology were particularly hypothetical and theoretical. To put it on a laboratory or to experiment with this, we needed an organism, we needed a model plant. Arabidopsis was that model plant. And first time, Frederick Lebeck in 1943 proposed Arabidopsis thaliana as a model organism, and with this, he actually knowingly or unknowingly marked the beginning of a modern experimental plant physiology. That means I said that plant physiology is an experimental science, but to understand the biochemical pathways and all these things, we must experiment on some organism or a model. For a zoology student, it is easy to understand that guinea pig is there. For us, Arabidopsis is there. And this was found such a interesting and very important plant that in the whole genome sequencing program, this plant was taken over, and the total genome sequencing of the plant was completed in the year 2000. You can understand, now we are in 2020, and we got the model plant with all genomic information only in the year 2000. So this is not a very old stream of study, rather it's a modern stream of study. As a student of biology, I am very greedy, আমি আমার লোভ সামলাতে পারছি না to introduce you to Arabidopsis. আমার মনে হয় আমরা অনেকেই হয়তো প্লান্টটা দেখিনি, তাই স্লাইডটা মেবি not that important, but to the botany students, I couldn't control myself to show you the plant. This is Arabidopsis thaliana, and right side there is a list of events where the plant was named Arabidopsis, and I think Dr. Ganguly in latter part will discuss how naming of the plant is done, how classification of the plant is done for the sake of this particular human being, for the sake of human being, for the benefit of human being. So I'm just for your information, for my own interest, I'm showing you. This is Arabidopsis thaliana, and it was discovered, you can see, long back in the year 1577, and Linnaeus first named this plant according to the memory of Professor Thal or Dr. Thal as Arabis thaliana. Finally, it was Gustav Helmholtz who named this as Arabidopsis thaliana. Now I am coming to modern part. It will be a little bit, maybe sound a little bit tough to my students, as I will come to the core of the subject, and I don't have that much time, so it will be very brief. But I will try to say particular things on particular topic, and then I will try to say how it is now getting used up for the sake of mankind. The invent of this particular techniques, that is spectral analysis, mass spectrophotometry, differential centrifugation technique, chromatography, these are actually attributed or provided as the tools to understand plant physiology in a better manner. And nowadays, plant physiology is actually centering, or it is actually having 5 arms, main arms, key areas. That is phytochemistry, better known as biochemistry, cellular interactions, as cell signaling, environmental interactions, that is ecology, plant morphology, that is known to you all, and molecular and cell biology. These 5 key areas actually contribute to a subject which is known as plant physiology. As a broad area, this particular plant physiology as a subject contains 12 broad areas. Now, fifth year students must be knowing that these are their syllabus, and not as a whole, and it takes almost 6 months to discuss the whole syllabus. As a teacher, my colleagues are there, they can understand that syllabus is nothing but an outline of plant physiology. So in this particular 20-15 minutes discussion, it is not possible for me to tell all these things, that broad areas, one by one in details. I will come to them very rapidly, and after this I will share a few things. So first thing we study is cellular organization under plant physiology. This is the first chapter. Cellular organization means all cells of a plant may look different, but for the adaptation purpose and all, they are very much having a same common basic plan for fundamental development and structure and function. Now, why I'm studying this? Because in this particular branch, we try to focus, we try to understand plants in a cellular level. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, what is the implication? Why I will study? Because if I consider only one aspect from these, several aspects are there. Cell wall. We could actually isolate cellulose from there. We all know that cell wall composition, one part of the cell wall composition is cellulose, and we as a human being used the cellulose in various manners for preparation of glass, unbreakable glass, for thread preparation and all. Our interest from the beginning, I said, আমরা প্রথম থেকেই বলে আসছি, গাছের সম্বন্ধে জানা বা বোঝার আমাদের উদ্দেশ্য কিন্তু হলো আমরা কিভাবে বেনিফিটেড হব সেটা। তাই আমরা পার্টিকুলার ব্রাঞ্চ নিয়ে যখন ডিসকাস করি, তখন ফোকাসটা থাকে যে যখন গাছটাকে ভালোভাবে বুঝে গেলাম, তারপর সেখান থেকে আমি কি করে বেনিফিটেড হব। সেলুলার অর্গানাইজেশন করার পিছনে আমাদের উদ্দেশ্য আমি ক্লিয়ারলি বলেছি। প্লান্ট ওয়াটার রিলেশন, to understand this, we have 3 particular topics. That is how plant absorb water by root, and how it is transported to the leaf, and then what are the other mechanisms associated with this. Transpiration is the mechanism we all know, and why we study transpiration? Because of developing seedlings, high-yielding varieties. If we can control transpiration, we can overcome those stress situations, those thermal stress, those light stress. We are interested in them, and then for that particular reason, plant-water relation is studied in that details. I cannot go into details beyond this as for time constant and all. Inorganic nutrient take, and what are the nutrients they take? We are dependent for our food on the plant, we all know. So if we can understand what are the nutrients they absorb, we will be able to understand what food or what plant to take for a particular mineral, for a particular nutrient we need to grow for our, we are now familiar with the particular term immunity, for growing our immunity. And this particular branch actually deals with that part of the plant, and different other aspects are associated with this, separate microorganisms, the role of separate fungi, these things are studied, and we use these in that particular manner. Another thing is that bioenergetics and ATP synthesis, we study these for our energy adoption purpose. And the thing we discuss here is thermodynamic laws. I'm not going into details. Oxidation reduction reactions, these things are very much necessary, and you can easily now understand what level of knowledge in biophysics, in biochemistry, in cellular mechanism, in genetics is necessary to understand plant physiology and, in a broader sense, plants. Our center of discussion. Photosynthesis, I'm not going into details of this as it is totally even known to a layman that what photosynthesis is and why we should study this. I'm coming into latter part of this discussion. Photosynthesis will be taken. Cellular respiration, we study this thing in plant physiology because we are very much interested in different metabolic byproducts of plants. That is, we all know malic acid, citric acid, all these things. Now, to understand that, what role actually it will play, from where to get these particular things, cellular respiration is very studied in very details as a separate subject, as a separate core area of plant physiology. Nitrogen assimilation is a branch where we study the uptake of nitrogen from atmosphere to the plant in a form which is available to us for the production of amino acid, or the as you all know, those essential amino acids, non-essential amino acids. We first actually try to know from where we can get this amino acid. So as a source of nitrogen, plants actually help us to get this nitrogen as a source from the nature. We cannot synthesize, and in this particular area we use these for our own benefit to get those amino acid from plant sources. This is nowadays getting very much importance or attention among scientists, because through these we develop different aromatic oils, different ingredients like secondary metabolites and all. These things, suppose we are growing, we know the plant ashwagandha. We are growing ashwagandha. আমি একটু বাংলায় বলে দিচ্ছি বুঝতে সুবিধা হবে বলে। অশ্বগন্ধা প্লান্ট যে কন্ডিশনে গ্রো করে, আমি যদি সেই কন্ডিশনেই অশ্বগন্ধা প্লান্টকে গ্রো না করিয়ে আমার বাড়িতে নিয়ে এসে গ্রো করাতে চেষ্টা করি, দেখা যায় অশ্বগন্ধার থেকে যে বেনিফিট ওয়াজ এক্সপেক্টেড, উই আর নট গেটিং দ্যাট পার্টিকুলার বেনিফিট। Why? Because the stress or the environmental condition is required to the ashwagandha to produce those secondary metabolites or essential oils, so that we get the required benefit we want. Now, this is very important thing. I'm not going into details. You all know that the growth and developmental studies actually help to grow those farming products, those flowers and all these things. These are the growth regulators. You all know natural growth regulators. I'm talking particularly, we study these because of using these things for flowering purpose, for gardening purpose, and for all these things. And these are the growth regulators that is recently being added, and bacillus and jasmonic acid and other phytohormones. We all know this, so I'm not going into details. Flower and fruit development. Here we actually particularly concentrate on a phenomenon vernalization and the hormones and enzymes necessary for this particular thing, you know, for our own sake. That is, we want to grow flowers if it is not a winter season also, we want to get dahlia and chandramallika. We actually use our knowledge, our experimental knowledge, to use this. This is photoperiodism and dormancy part, where in this particular part of plant physiology we study about phytochrome, we study about cryptochrome, Now these sounds they may be a little bit odd to the third sem students or the fourth sem students, but fifth sem students, they know all these things. These things actually are nothing but pigments. They absorb the red light and blue light in different frequencies for development and other purposes of the plant. And we use this for our own sake, we all know. Now I will come to end of this discussion with an interesting fact. This particular slide, which is visible on the screen, actually showing you information. This is very silly information, and must be student must be laughing seeing the cartoon is there. It is very simple. It sounds very simple. That human being use about 550 liter of pure oxygen per day. This is maybe known to us. And a plant grows 22 liter of oxygen for 150 gram of growth per day. That means at the trace, at that particular rate, for our consumption, we need 8 pounds, that is almost 4 kilos of green part, green leafy part for our own survival. That means, আমাকে যদি একদিন বেঁচে থাকতে হয় তাহলে 4 কেজি গ্রিন প্লান্ট আমার চারপাশে থাকা দরকার। এইটুকু আমরা প্লান্ট ফিজিওলজির বিভিন্ন এক্সপেরিমেন্ট থেকে জানতে পেরেছি। এইবার আমরা যদি আমাদের ওভারঅল ডিসকাশন যেটা আজকে হলো সেইটাকে যদি চিন্তা ভাবনা করি, then we will find that through our knowledge we are actually trying to survive on this earth. We are actually trying to stretch the Anthropocene a little bit further with the help of plants. This is the particular thing. We get food, we get all things from plants, it's all okay. But for survival, first we need oxygen, and a big amount of oxygen is necessary, and a large amount of plant is also necessary. So our knowledge of plant physiology actually gives us a scope to understand plants to be available to for the survival, how plants could be grown in a manner where less amount of soil is required, could be grown in a manner when a particular plant is only a xerophytic plant, we can bring it here and grow. This knowledge actually provided by plant physiology with the help of modern tools and techniques, and with the help of some interdependent stream of study which have already been discussed. Now, without wasting any more time, I would like to conclude my lecture by thanking you all for your kind cooperation. Particularly, I would like to thank the organizers again for giving me a scope to speak in this particular enlightening session to the students who may be getting some benefit or maybe getting some inspiration why they should learn plant physiology, not only for as a subject which can score numbers in the examination, but for the survival in the near future. Thank you very much. Now I would like to hear any question or queries if any.
Thank you.
Smriti, is there is any question?
For your enriching lecture. Next up is Dr. Gautam Ganguly, who is an assistant professor from the Department of Botany at Chandernagore College, Hooghly. He has been in the West Bengal Education Service for 12 years, having completed his master's in 2000 and PhD in 2007. He was selected as a CSIR Research Associate in 2007. He has published 21 research papers in reputed journals such as American Fern Journal, Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences, BioNature, and Indian Fern Journal. I would now request to take over Dr. Ganguly. Please.
Very good evening to all. uh, Respected TIC ma'am, respected IQAC coordinator, respected Shubhradi, and all other dignitaries. Uh, I feel very proud to be present at this webinar, and I want to present some knowledge to the students about the systematics and history of systematics. Uh, 1 minute, I am presenting my lecture. Okay. Today I am going to uh, give my lecture on the broad topic given by the institution, that centering plant physiology and systematics, reconciling Anthropocene and the earth. On that topic, I am giving my lecture on the systematics, and I have choose a topic that is interesting to students, that is a plant taxonomy through ages. Actually, plant taxonomy, it is a very interesting subject, and it is a very difficult subject to understand. So I can say that adapting from Dobzhansky's thought, that can we say that nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of taxonomy? The answer may be yes. Without taxonomy, we cannot understand physiology. Why? Previous speaker Sudip told that about the plant that is Arabidopsis thaliana, which is a model plant. If I cannot identify Arabidopsis thaliana with the help of plant taxonomy, I cannot send the plant to the plant physiologist for their experiment. In our third year students syllabus, that is plant physiology syllabus, we are practicing a practical, that is photosynthesis, evolution of oxygen. In that plant, experiment, we are using the plant material hydrilla. Okay. So when I tell my student to collect some hydrilla from the pond, if he does not know which plant is hydrilla, he cannot collect the plant. In spite of he can collect the hygrophila, then how can we proceed our experiment? So in this way, taxonomy has great importance for the identification of the plant materials, which are more useful in other part of the plant sciences. Actually, in the early days, morphology, anatomy, and the palynology and other some more characters are used in plant systematics. Used in plant systematics. Okay. So these are the older characters, but nowadays during the evolution of the taxonomy, many characters are introduced and many things are introduced in the plant taxonomy. So in this lecture, I try to told that the taxonomy and taxon, the terminology and fluctuating meanings of the terminologies. Actually, before 1813, we cannot know the term taxonomy. The term taxonomy first time coined by Augustine Pyramidi Candoli. He is more well known as A.P. de Candolle. He coined the term taxonomy from two Greek words, taxis and nomos. That means it is a lawful arrangement of organisms. That is using some law, using some rules, we are organized the plant materials or living organisms in a systematic way. He first time in his book Theory Elementary de la Botanique defined this scientific discipline. First time he told that the theory of classification applied to vegetal kingdom, that is the plant materials, which he considered as one of the three components of botany. That is glossology. Number one, glossology. Glossology, what is glossology? Glossology is the array of terminologies that are used to describe plant organs. And phytography, that is a description of the plants in most useful way. How to describe, that is the phytography. How to describe a plant? What are the terminologies are used to describe a plant? These are all in the taxonomy. Nowadays, sometimes some authors are told taxonomy as systematics or biosystematics. In the advent of the theory of evolution by famous scientist Darwin in 1859, that the plants have so or organisms have so evolution from their ancestors. They evolved from their ancestors. That is he told us there is a phylogeny. So phylogenetic concept has been introduced in taxonomy, that is known as biosystematics. When systematics told that, systematics without any phylogenetic concept, and if phylogenetic concept is introduced in the taxonomy, it is called as biosystematics. So I am going to express a historical perspective of taxonomy, how taxonomy dates back from ancient age. It is about 5,600 years ago. We know the name of that first botanist in the world, Theophrastus. He first time introduced the plant taxonomy, the concept of plant taxonomy. But there is no terminology on that time. That is the verbal kind of, but without written language, verbal kind of plant taxonomy going on that part of the world in Rome and in Greek area. On that time, the plants, names of the plants are based on the uses of the plant of in that centuries, 15th to 16th centuries. This part is going on. It is Knossos in 1900 BC. He introduced a new thing in understanding taxonomy, understanding plants. He introduced some figures, colorful figures of the useful plants like barley, fig, and roses and lilies. That is a part of taxonomy that that is illustration. It can be introduced in plant taxonomy on that time. It is 1900 BC. Okay, then it has come that Theophrastus have got some question to the world, that what are the question? How we differentiate between things, how we differentiate between plants, how we would differentiate between the plants, how can you distinguish? Then the term came the character. The characters are the main things to distinguish between plants. Suppose plant A and plant B is there. How can we distinguish these plants? By using characters. Okay. Theophrastus in his book Inquiry into the Plants, he describes about 5,000 plants, probably representing all plants used at that time. He classified those plants in such groups that it may be trees, it may be shrubs, it may be undershrubs, it may be herbs. On that time, about 5,600 years ago, classification is very much unknown to the world. So this is an introduction of plant taxonomy on the basis of short classification. That is, the plants are trees, plants are shrubs, plants are undershrubs, plants are herbs. He also established a distinction between flowering and non-flowering plant. Before that, there is no record that plants can be classified in that manner. He also classified the plants in deciduous and evergreen trees. He also introduced the classification of the plants on the basis of the habitat they grow. It is terrestrial, it may be aquatic, it may be epiphytic. This type of classification on the basis of habitat, Theophrastus introduced the plant classification. Okay, Theophrastus is well ahead about his time. He is a man of knowledge, man of wisdom about the plants and organisms. After him, a long time, there is no record in the world about the plant taxonomy. It is in 23 AD. It is in the Europe, that is Pliny and Elder was two remarkable workers who are working on the classification of plants or basic taxonomy of the plant. But they cannot add new things to the taxonomy. Only they compile the work of other authors in their book, Naturalis Historia, about gathering 20,000 facts and observations. They are only gathering facts, they do not introduce any new things to the plant taxonomy. After that, in 77 AD, the book written by Dioscorides, we all know the Materia Medica. It is a book consisting of the information of botanical plants which are actually used in pharmacognosy, which have some medicinal importance. After that, Juliana's book, which consists of beautiful, colorful figures, continuing the work, that is illustration is much more required to identify the plants rather only description. Okay, all those books of regarding plants are known at that time are known as herbals. Herbals, actually the books that consist of the name and the uses of the useful plants only. And they did not bring any other substantial progress in plant taxonomy. But in 15th and 16th century, it is found that we know that Columbus, Vasco da Gama, and Magellan, they trekked to the globe with their ships, and so many plants have been collected throughout the world. They invented the new world, that is America. They, except Australia and New Zealand, they invented all over the world and collected so many plants. But the plant taxonomy haven't progressed with three events happened in the world. Firstly, the invention of the Gutenberg printing system. We all know that Gutenberg Bible is the first printed book in the world, and that Gutenberg printing system is a portable system. It can be traveled throughout the world. After the invention of the printing system, the data which are written in hand can be recorded in books. And secondly, the first botanical garden in Italy has been established. And thirdly, the remarkable work by Ghini, who invented a revolutionary method for preserving the plant material. What are those? preserving the plant material. We are preserving the plant material in what form? In dried form, in herbarium seeds. Luca Ghini first invented this herbarium technique, and they paste the dried plant material in the books, and this book is known as Hortus Siccus, that is meaning the dried garden. So herbarium technology is the remarkable landmark in the plant taxonomy to preserve the plant material. If we visit different kinds of herbaria throughout the world, we can find a century-old herbarium seeds which can carry the characters of the plants still till date. So these three works are very important for plant taxonomy. Now, a student of Guinea, known as Andrea Cisalpino. All of you know the name of as a botanist, all of you know the name of Andrea Cisalpino. He is a student of Guinea. He first time highlighted the plants should be classified in a more natural and rational way than solely on their basis of utilization. Previously, plants are classified on the basis of their utilization. It is the plant for food, it is for fodder, it is for other different kinds, that is pharmacognostic or medicinal kinds. But Andrea Cisalpino first time introduced a natural system of classification. Cisalpino provided a new classification system based on the seeds and fruits, apart from their uses. Cisalpino also adding some adjective during naming of the plant. What are those? As for example, he can distinguish between Adria spinosa, a plant. He uses two things in the scientific names. Adria spinosa, that is spiny ivy, and Adria terrestris, that is creeping ivy. He can distinguish by using some terminology, that is Adria spinosa, that is spiny ivy, spinosa for spiny ivy, spiny plant body, and Adria terrestris for their creeping habitat on the terrestrial surface, not in the aquatic surface. But on that time, he does not introduce the binomial nomenclature. This is the, somehow it is the first known binomial nomenclature introduced by Cisalpino. But in his book, he does not practice the binomial nomenclature. On that time, the polynomial Latin names are used. Polynomial names are consisting of so many phrases on the names. As for example, Solanum, Cauli, Inari, Herbaco, Folis, Pinitis, Incisis, which means Solanum with a smooth herbaceous stem and incised pinnate leaves.
তারপর কি রে তামিল বদমাইশ হয়ে যাচ্ছে বেশি
Hello.
Okay, sir. She has been muted. You can continue, sir. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Now, Cisalpino contributed to the emergence of the concept of natural classification by using natural characters on classifying plants. After that, in 1627, British botanist John Ray introduced a classification that using more character, not a single character. He using more character on which the plant classification is based. He documented about 17,000 plant species in his book Historia Plantarum, and distinguish between the flowering plants and the non-flowering plants. After that, John Ray played a major role in the development of plant taxonomy by using the number of characters, increased number of characters to distinguish plants, and he first time used the dichotomous key. All of you know the different types of key are there. You can practice in your classes that you can produce dichotomous key by putting the contradictory characters, such as the leaf surface is smooth, leaf surface is villous. Those two characters are contradictory with one another. This is a figure of a herbarium set which contains at the base, you can look, the scientific name is polynomial in nature. At the right hand base of the corner, you can see the polynomial name of the herbarium of the plant material. Okay. Then we can start to talk about the naming of plants. Is a major advance by Linnaeus. Actually, Linnaeus does not introduce the binomial nomenclature. He takes the ideas of Cecil Pinot, he takes the ideas of Bauhin, Caspar Bauhin, and put those ideas, that is, plants should be in binomial Latin rather than polynomial, because he thought that the naming of a plant should be in two phases. What are those? First part of the scientific name, which should be a generic name, and second part of the scientific name should be the specific epithet. He first time practiced in his book, The Species Plantarum, about 6,000 plants. He practiced the first binomial nomenclature, and also used author citation at the end of the scientific name. Okay, then with the advent of the theory of evolution by Darwin at the year of 1859, on the publication of his book, The Origin of Species, he introduced that the organisms are evolved from their ancestors. So Darwin does not contribute any new thought in the plant taxonomy or any zoological taxonomy or other taxonomy, but his theory of evolution has been taken by some authors to introduce the phylogeny or evolutionary concept in the taxonomy part. Otherwise, before the advent of the Origin of the Species book, the phylogenetic concept is not in the taxonomy part. He is one of the scientists who introduced that part in the taxonomy. Linnaeus in his classification, look at the picture. Linnaeus in his classification used some artificial characters to classify the plants. That is on the basis of the number of the stamens. That is monandria, diandria, triandria, and so on. You can see the monandria means one stamen, diandria, two stamen, and so on. And ultimately, he classified the plant group into 24 classes. At the end, he put the cryptogams before the phanerogams. In 1960s, new methods were introduced in modern taxonomy. We all know that Smith and Sokal first time introduced the numerical taxonomy. On this method, he consisted the quantitative analysis of the similarities between taxa. He introduced that the numerical taxonomy, which is on the basis of the similarities between two taxa. Suppose one taxa have stipule and other taxa have not. So he put one taxa, he put 1 for the taxa which consists of stipule, and he put 0 for the taxa which devoid of stipule. So in this manner, and with the data matrix, Snaith and Sokal characterize the numerical taxonomy. But nevertheless, the theory flourished in great way to benefit of the plant taxonomy from the rapid advance of the informatics. Actually, with the introduction of the numerical taxonomy, what happens? The authors who are working on numerical taxonomy introduced so many characters. As many as characters you can introduce in numerical taxonomy, it is the classification between two taxa which are closer or which are far from each other depends on the number of characters you introduced. As many as characters you introduce, the classification is more reliable. Otherwise, the classification is not reliable. Okay, then a system of classification has been introduced, that is phylogenetic system of classification. Here, in this classification, phylogenetic relationship between two taxa were introduced. The primary principle of the cladistic system of classification is to use the overall similarity among taxa to reconstruct the phylogeny, not to use the overall similarity, but to the evolutionary relationship between them. How they actually, suppose taxa A derived from taxa B. So which characters are derived from B to A or introduced from B to A has been taken into consideration. This is the theme. This is a theme for the classification of evolutionary or phylogenetic systematics. It is, you can see in the picture that the plants in 3 groups, Plantae, Protista and Animalia, how can derive from a common ancestor. This is a phylogenetic tree which can show the evolution of the plants, Protista and Animalia from the base of the basic ancestor. And finally, the discovery of DNA in 1953, the double helix structure by Watson and Crick probably opened a door for biological sciences. The character of DNA, so many characters, so many DNAs, and after that, the polymerase chain reaction by Kary-Mullis has dramatically changed the biological system of classification. We can take so many characters from genetical end. We can take the rDNA technology from rDNA sequence, DNA sequencing. From that part of the science, taxonomy took advantage of the molecular data to delimitate the species identification from DNA barcoding. DNA barcoding actually is based on the standardized DNA sequence, which can allow distinguishing individual of different species. So introducing the DNA barcoding, taxonomy has been flourished a more level. And after that, we can find the angiosperm phylogeny group. On that, the molecular data, the theoretical, morphological, anatomical, and so many data has been introduced to produce this group. And finally, in the conclusion part, I would like to say the long history of plant taxonomic research and its numerous contribution for both theoretical concept and the practical accumulation of knowledge allowed the development of the system or scientific discipline which deals with the exploration of taxa, describing a taxa, documentation of taxa, and distribution of taxa, and finally classifying the taxa from date back to Theophrastus to till days. The taxonomy from its birth on record to its present age took a step to delimiting the taxa, to identify the taxa, to describe the taxa, to illustrate the taxa in different modes. At the advent of different kinds of technologies, with the advent of the scanning electron microscopy, with the advent of the transmission electron microscopy, so many characters are introduced, that is microscopic characters, that is ultra microscopic characters introduced in the taxonomy, and rich taxonomy to differentiate between different taxa or related taxa and place them in their proper place according to their phylogenetic relationships. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ganguly, for the fascinating talk. Now, we will take questions, if any. I cannot see any messages.
There is one question from Shahil Ahmed. Sir, I want to know which plant growth hormone among those PG are responsible for phototropism and transpiration. You can pass this question to the
Dr. Sudip Chatterjee.
Question I think PGR responses or phototropism and transpiration. Phototropism is actually controlled by auxin, and transpiration there are several transpiration actually in the form of anti-transpirant. It is ABA. I think we got your answer. It is auxin and ABA.
Identify phylogenetically close species of Euphorbiaceae.
Phylogenetically, Euphorbiaceae can be identified by using different taxonomic tools from the morphological point of view to the anatomical point of view and from the genealogical point of view. If you can gather all the data, you can identify or classify taxonomically. Using some softwares are present. If you put the data on the software, if you have so many species of Euphorbiaceae, suppose you have 10 to 15 species of Euphorbiaceae, you can gather the data and put on the software, and you run the software, the phylogenetic tree will be given. The most important part is you should have the data on different levels, from morphological level, from anatomical level, and from the genealogical level.
I would now request our head of the institution, Dr. Nirmala Rajak, to say a few words.
Thank you, Subhradi. I feel immense pleasure to convey vote of thanks on behalf of our college. Let me first express our gratitude and heartfelt thanks to our keynote speaker of this web lecture, Dr. Sudip Chatterjee, Assistant Professor of Botany, Shyamsundor College, and Dr. Gautam Ganguly, Assistant Professor in WBES, Department of Botany, Chandernagore College, for their invaluable speech and guidelines. Thank you. We will remain obliged to both of you forever. We are also thankful to Dr. Subhra Banerjee and Anjushree Odhikari, Department of Botany, and Krishnendu Pramani, librarian, for hosting and coordinating this web lecture. At last but not at least, I would like to express our thanks to all the teachers, dignitaries, and students from other colleges and also from our own college. Without their participation, the objective of the web lecture would have been meaningless. Thank you all once again.
I thank you all again, and with this, we bring our session to a close. Stay safe, everybody. Thank you.